Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. We're talking about Democrats getting thrown out of office. If the Texas Supreme Court has anything to say about it, and it is a pretty red court over there, so we'll see what they say about it. But we're going to go through it because it is capturing a lot of political energy out there. The Democrats recognizing this is the game for them, right? This is their whole shtick, which is to assemble advantages at different institutional levels throughout the hierarchy of power and then abuse those indefinitely to ensconce themselves for eternity. And so what we're seeing now is this almost like a visceral reaction, like an antibody reaction kind of a thing. The cancerous cell that has been taking over infrastructure is now recoiling because the Republicans are playing the same game. So Greg Abbott is saying the Texas Supreme Court came down with an order. They're ordering the Democrats, this guy, Gene Wu, to file a response by Friday, or else we may just move ahead without you. And so we'll go through it. This is over from the Supreme Court of Texas. We also, of course, have the actual petition that came in from the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. It's a 35-pager. This is up at the Supreme Court in Texas, so we'll see the Democrats file their response. And then this is going to impact the whole country, really. I mean, if we have 5 additional seats that go the way of Texas, and as we'll see when we parse through some of these other things, Senator Tom Cotton shared with us the map of Illinois, and we got Pritzker out there who's hosting all of these Democrats on his gigantic bosoms, now saying that they're going to redistrict even harder or something. So it's like, look, if the Democrats are going to kick everybody in the nads, then we can kick back, according to Eric Holder. So we got that. We got reaction. We've got Jake Tapper out here. I got some great stats. Ken Paxton. We'll talk all about reaction. This lady is comparing this to the Holocaust, I guess. I guess. All right, we'll go through it. We'll see what she says. We got Eric Holder, who's a criminal, who's hopefully going to be getting indicted soon. He's talking about this. Democrats are, as you can see, even Obama came out, right? Obama emerged. He's like, we can't lose focus. If we lose these seats, we lose everything. And if the Republicans start to hit us back with our own tactics, we're in big trouble. So we'll parse it together and see what's going on over there before we turn our attention to some other activity, because we got some Epstein news as well. We got Radar Online that is sharing some new documents. And one of these documents we've seen here before, which is this one, I do believe. But now we see these other file entries talking about Epstein. And this looks like they came from the original case file that the government was working on back in 06, 07, and of course, as you see here, in 08. So we got some new documents out, but it's looking like there's some pretty clear connections to intelligence. You see even right here in this document, Epstein is giving info to the FBI. Oh, well, so that means he's an FBI informant, right? Well, so is that why he got a good plea deal? Oh, so you gave him a non-prosecution agreement because he's going to turn over other evidence to the federal government and work for them. So did the federal government enable him from this moment on? Golly. And what did Epstein give them that justified that non-prosecution agreement that was worth it? And did they do anything with any of that information at all? Or did they just say, Epstein's going to be our informant now, and we're just going to cover for him? So we'll go through that document. Came out from Radar Online. We'll parse through it. We also had some updates in the cases, in the Epstein case and the Maxwell case. Both of them had some new filings, and the judge got some new letters from some victims. So we'll take a look at those and see what the latest is on that one, because the judge is asking for some more clarification. You see here in a couple orders, we'll see what's happening. Then we've also got Obama getting called out, with Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, now explaining that Obama knowingly approved this conspiracy. And so we're starting to see some criminal type language come back into the fold, and we're going to see where, of course, that goes. We had a great question here over from the State Department. Marco Rubio getting asked about his prior report on all this crossfire hurricane stuff and Russia collusion hoaxing and all the stuff. So we'll see what is going on there from the State Department and get some other reaction from Tom Elliott, and Tulsi was on with Miranda. So it's going to be a beautiful stream, my friends. Really glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subbing up to our channel if you haven't already done that. And thanks for inviting someone you know or love to come over and join us so they can be apprised as well of this nefariousness that's afoot in our country. So we had a great members only stream also this morning. Thanks to our members for being members. And if you want to join us, grab some extra content, meet some awesome people and support our work here, you can do that by becoming a member. You can go to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, sign up over there, or sign up on YouTube, and we'll see you on the members only streams in the morning and on our after parties and on the Saturday shows. So come join us. We really appreciate it, and we love our membos. So, all right, now, my friends, let's get into it on the day, because we've got some business to attend to. The Supreme Court of Texas now ordering the Democrats to respond, or else this case might proceed without them, as typically happens. Now, here's what Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, said as it relates to the fleeing Democrats. Says the Texas Supreme Court has now ordered the runaway ringleader of the derelict Democrats to respond to my lawsuit by Friday, the end of this week. They better get on it. Here's what the Supreme Court said. We'll backfill this. We'll take a look at what the petition looked like. But here is what the clerk of the court is writing. All right, the Supreme Court of Texas now requests that Gene Wu, the derelict Democrat extraordinaire, that he file a response to the petition for a writ of quo warranto in the above referenced case. The response is due to being filed no later than 5 p.m. Friday, August 8th this week. Please note, you got to file through efiletexas.gov. Okay, don't send it into my inbox. I don't want to read it. So, Blake, don't put it in the e-file. Sent to everybody else. Now, we got the actual petition, so we'll see what the argument is, and we'll see what the response from Wu looks like when that comes in, and what the Supreme Court decides to do. If these people don't return, are they going to disqualify them? Because that is exactly what they're asking for here. They're saying, hey, Supreme Court of Texas, the law is on our side, all right? You should remove this dude from his office. Gene Wu needs to go. By participating in this ongoing quorum break, he's forfeited his office. And this removal is abandonment, okay? He left the state, so he's abandoned his people and his constituents. And we cannot allow a state to function this way. So you've abandoned it. You don't want to come do your job, you've abandoned it. Just like anybody else. You don't show up to open your shop or the person you're working for shop on time, you're in big trouble. You're not on your desk at 9 a.m. for 8 a.m. for a lot of people. You're in trouble. But if you're a Democrat representative out of Texas, apparently you can do whatever you want all the time with no consequences because you think you're special. And you get private flights too. Incredible. So we'll go back to this here in a second. But man, the Democrats are flipped over this. Here's what Obama came out and said. We don't hear a lot from Obama, probably because he's so busy talking to defense attorneys. But he said, we can't lose focus on what matters. Right now, Republicans in Texas are trying to gerrymander district lines. Everyone dunks on him in a minute. To unfairly win 5 seats in the next year's midterms. And we hope it's a lot more than that. I mean, we're like, look, the Democrats, just to be ultra clear, they charged Trump with 4 crimes, 4 separate cases filled with crimes. They were all made up and fake, as we've chronicled here many times over. Then they've also funded 2 civil lawsuits. Tish James brought one, and then E. Jean Carroll. Those were the big ones. There were dozens of other lawsuits that they had to deal with too. And don't forget that they tried to throw Trump off the ballot. They wanted to gerrymander the whole election. These maniacs. They were all arguing for it. Trump's an insurrectionist, so we can just not have him on the ballot anymore. What? That maniac judge in Colorado said so. So now they're going to be upset when the Republicans are playing by the same rules that they've been playing by forever. And Tom Cotton called out Barack Obama over here. He said, Obama is as dishonest as he is sanctimonious. Here's a map that Obama supports because it helps the Democrats. But Republicans, quote, undermine democracy when we follow the Democrats' lead. Here's the Illinois map, right? And you can see it's like St. Louis drops all the way out over here. Even Stephen Colbert was making fun of Pritzker on this. He's like, the heck is this? Looks like a scorpion. Why'd you guys draw it this way? Why is that all in yellow? And this is all in purple. And then you've got the green, which kind of looks a little bit more normal. But then these are all just kind of drawn out, comes all the way up over here, little boop, 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 right around Rockford, and take a boop, boop, come all the way back down over here, then over here. It's ridiculous. Why do they draw it that way? Now, Pritzker was like, well, you know, it's just how things evolved. But when the Republicans now exercise their rights as state legislators, the Democrats have a meltdown on this. Now, Jake Tapper is saying that Illinois is just an exception, okay? Nobody else really does this, all right? Republicans are actually the ones that are doing this. But the numbers show that's not true at all. Here you go.
If you look at the map, right, you have some exceptions like Illinois. There's blatant Democratic gerrymandering. But most of the worst offenders when it comes to gerrymandering are Republican states, such as Texas.
All right, so that's Jake Tapper doing the Jake Tapper thing. So, you know, that's mostly meaningless out of him. But he is regurgitating the same line. But the fact is, Matt Whitlock put together some numbers for us. And so here's what it looks like. California, 40% of the statewide vote is red. 40% is Republican. But they only have 9 out of 52 seats, which is only 17% of the total. Isn't that interesting? Why don't Republicans have closer to actually 40% rather than 17%? Massachusetts, Republicans have 35% of the statewide vote. Guess how many seats they have? They have 1/3. You'd say they should have 1/3 of the House seats. They have 0 out of 9, 0 seats. So they should have 3, but they've got 0. So it'd be nice if the Republicans had some power there, then they could fix that, but they don't because it's Massachusetts and they've already rigged themselves into oblivion. How can they get more seats out of that? They can't. Connecticut, Republicans have 1/3 of the vote, but they have 0 seats and nothing's going to change there. New York, Republicans got 42%. It's the big cities that are the liberal hellholes. So they only get, though, 7 out of the 26 seats, which is 26%, not even close to representative. New Jersey, 43% was red, but they only get 25% of the seats. Maryland, same thing, 38-12. New Mexico, 44%, almost half the state is Republican. They got 0 seats. And Hawaii, same thing, 30%, 0 out of 2. But maybe that one you could say is kind of fair because it's not quite 1/3. So, you know, maybe it's hard to get, there's not really 3 seats there. So, you know, something like that, like you got 2 seats, you're kind of fighting over those 2. Now, Oregon, 42%, only 16, 1 out of 6. Washington, 20%, 2 out of 10. 38% is red. And Rhode Island, no seats at all. So this is the Democratic playbook. And now they're freaked because the Republicans are striking back. And Attorney General Ken Paxton, he also posted about this. He says, here's what Massachusetts looks like. He wrote, these are their congressional districts. They have 0 Republicans in Congress, okay? So the Massachusetts governor who came out like this, listen, look at this lady. She came out, she said, you know what, Greg Abbott, we're going to redistrict our state too.
Redistricting in retaliation, is that something you would consider in Massachusetts?
You know, isn't it a sad state of affairs that that's where we're at, okay? And, you know, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice.
What?
That's the reality.
What are you going to do?
Nobody came looking for this.
What are you going to do?
We had a system of free and fair elections. We have maps that are regularly drawn, voted on by legislatures, approved and signed off on by governors. This is the way the system works until this comes in. And so, you know, they've left us no choice. It's not where anyone wants to be. I can tell you that governors I know, maybe with the exception of this person in Texas, evidently, we want our constituents represented.
No, you don't. All right, so that's what's going on in Massachusetts? That's your governor? That's Governor Healy? Oh, my goodness. What's going on in that state? She looks like Elizabeth Warren. Anyways, all right, so it's maybe the same thing's going on here. We have like the, I wanted to speak to your manager team of people who are running Arizona right now. But all right, so hopefully that changes soon. So that's what's happening in Massachusetts. And the problem with that little weird threat from her is that it's already all blue, you lunatic governor. There is no more gerrymandering that you can do because you've already obliviated the entire Republican Party out of your state. So The Republicans better do this, by the way. The Republicans better play ball and get their act together and get this stuff passed in their states, because the Democrats are slowly going to come in and take over just like they did in these other states. And once they've got that foothold, man, once it's so gerrymandered and USAID'd up and it's got all of the, Harvard cash coming in from the federal government and all the things, then they just continue to ensconce their liberal institutions for all eternity. Now, this weird Democrat, this Texas state representative called Yolanda, she came out and she said, this is like the Holocaust in Texas, which is happening right now.
And then integration happened and everybody thought they accept us. They don't accept us. They are showing us who they are. We should believe them. And we better have the courage to stand up. Otherwise, we will fall for anything. And in this country, we will be defeated, deported. We will lose all of our rights. And if you think it can't happen, it can. And I will liken this to the Holocaust. People are like, well, how did the Holocaust happen? How was somebody in a position to kill all them people? Well, good people remain silent. Or good people didn't realize that what happens to them can very soon happen to me or somebody I love. And so even if you made it, man, you have an obligation to help people who can't, because God forbid they end up targeting you and your family.
All right, so they have totally gone nuts. This is the Democratic Party in Texas. Interesting time. So Yolanda is saying apparently she's going to get deported and arrested and maybe even incinerated or something. I don't know where she's going with that, but she thinks things are pretty bad in Texas. And the only thing that she can think to do is, I guess, flee rather than just, showing up and voting. That's all anyone's asking for. Just vote. All you have to do is vote. Just come back and vote. Just cast your vote. No. Or don't do anything. Just sit there. Just sit like a bump on a log right there in the Congress, and they'll do business without you. That's all we need. So she can show up. Otherwise, I guess she's going to be, I don't know, probably in hiding for the foreseeable future, since the Holocaust is happening all around her. Eric Holder claims the House might not certify the 2028 presidential election. What? You mean they're going to invalidate an election?
This is not a Texas problem. Yeah, the focus of this issue is Texas, but this is a national problem. And you got to understand, if somehow, some way, Republicans are able to hold on to the House in next year, and in spite of the fact that I think they should lose because of the big budget bill that took health care away from millions of people, that gave tax breaks to billionaires who didn't need it. If they were somehow able to hold on to the House in 2026, that is the House of Representatives that would have to certify who won the presidential election come 2028, 2029. Now, if you want to play with fire, and that's what we're doing here, you put in a bunch of partisan hacks who are not supposed to be in the House, who are there because of gerrymandering and a whole range of other things that Republicans are doing, and then put at risk the possibility that that body would not certify who the next president was.
I guess he's talking about like an insurrection or something. So like the Republicans will take over the House and then nobody is going to elect the next president, I guess, if the Democrats win. I guess that's his concern. So we've got Eric Holder, who's out there. We also had this guy get a little bit flustered because people are wondering if this is backfiring on the Democrats. And we were contemplating this yesterday, asking ourselves the same question. Are there any consequences for going out and just arresting all of the Democrats if Kash Patel decided to do that, which I don't think is going to happen? I think the more palatable decision would just to be declare they vacated their offices and just vote without them, right? And they're all gone, and so we're going to have a new election too. Nice, thanks for playing. And just let the courts handle it rather than bring law enforcement in. But if they did use law enforcement to go round up these fleeing Dems, what would the consequence of that be? I mean, are people going to have a lot of sympathy for politicians who are hopping on private jets, flying out of their states, failing to do their jobs when a lot of people need to get stuff done, especially in Texas? Are they going to, oh, don't be so mean to them? I don't think so. I think that a lot of people have disdain for their representatives right now for being so terrible at their jobs. So here is how this went down. This guy was getting into it, and Matt Whitlock shared this, said, brutal. This Texas Democrat, his name is James Tallarico, he gets flummoxed when pressed on whether fleeing Texas is backfiring. And here's what he had to say.
And as you know, that means that there is other legislation that's going to be the victim of that. And that includes this bill for flood assistance for those Texans who were impacted by those devastating floods on July 4th. Are you concerned that all of this could ultimately be a mistake if that legislation also becomes a victim of this?
This is a Republican talking point. I'm concerned that Greg Abbott decided to play politics with flood victims and their families. The only emergency that we should be coming to the state capitol to address is flood mitigation and disaster prevention. That's what Texans want us to focus on. It's why my Democratic colleagues and I showed up on the first day of the special legislative session 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but you're not there now.
We begged our Republican colleagues to prioritize flood victims and their families, and they refused.
But the reality is, Representative, the reality is the consequence of the decision, regardless of whether or not it's a talking point, is that this bill is not going to advance. Is that a bad thing if this bill doesn't advance?
And who put flood mitigation after redistricting on the agenda?
The Republicans. They control the floor.
Exactly.
They have made that decision.
Exactly.
But there will be
you know
consequences to your decision here, too. Will there not?
And you know why they did that is so that they could play politics with those flood victims, so that they could pressure us to give away our constituents' voices in the democratic process. They're using flood victims to try to get us to agree to these corrupt maps so they can rig the next election. We are not willing to sacrifice the American experiment. We begged them to prioritize flood victims, and they refused to do so. This is cynical politics at its worst.
They're panicked because they realize that they really don't have a lot of cards. And the Supreme Court, as we saw, came back down out of Texas and gave us some pretty clear guidelines. The last time they tried to get a TRO to prevent the arrest of those other individuals who fled the last time, Supreme Court said, actually, the law says that they can be arrested. And so what we're seeing, I think, is going to be a very red Supreme Court that will come back down and find in favor of the right, presumably, but we'll see what happens. But here is what ultimately went up to the Supreme Court of Texas. You see, emergency petition for a writ of quo warranto from Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, saying, all right, listen, Supreme Court, these guys need to be thrown out of their office, and gals, and whatever they call themselves, because they're Democrats. Says, this is abandonment. This is willful refusal to serve as a representative, and it requires removal of these people immediately since they're no longer here. What are we supposed to do? Just wait for them until their temper tantrum is over? We got a state to run. And so this came to the Supreme Court. They said, you have jurisdiction to issue a writ of quo warranto to bring them back or to hold them invalidated, as they'll be asking for. Here's the question. Did Gene Wu, who's been ordered to respond to this, has he forfeited the office of the state, and has he created a vacancy that we can refill? What's at stake here? Writes Greg Abbott. Nothing less than the future of Texas and maybe America. If a small fraction of recalcitrant lawmakers choose to run out the clock today, they can do so for any reason. And every regular or special session, they can do it, potentially bankrupting the state in an attempt to get their way, like whiny babies. That means every state budget could be held hostage until the whims of a small fraction of these legislators is satisfied. It doesn't have to be that way. The rarely used writ of quo warranto exists to solve rare problems such as this. And this court exists to solve cases with ramifications far beyond the individual parties to the case. And so here too, the court's decision will determine if only 1/3 of the legislature can dictate everything. It's tyranny of the minority. The outcome for 100% of Texans, just if they all get together and abandon ship, then like that's the end of governance in Texas, I guess. No one can do anything. Fearing one of 18 items on the special session agenda, there's a bunch of other items there, but this is the one they care about, raw power. They don't really care about flood victims or anything, even though they say they do regularly. Democrat members, if they did, they wouldn't be Democrats. Democrat members of the Texas House claim an entitlement to abdicate their official duties by refusing to show up for work, to deprive the House of a quorum necessary to conduct business because the vote may not go their way. And this is coming out of Gene Wu. He recently fled the state, and he continues to remain absent to this day. Now, these members have abandoned their official duties, which are required by the Constitution, which would allow legislation to pass in a 30-day session that is vital to Texas's needs. We got flood relief. We need property tax relief, public school reforms. Think about the children. Public records, writes Greg Abbott and his team, suggest that the absconding Democrats who fled even solicited money to pay the fines incurred for their absence. The problem here is that the harm these members have inflicted can continue perpetually, indefinitely, for as long as they want to hang out with Pritzy. They may return from a quorum break for a few days and then abscond once again. Oh, we don't like that again. Let's go back on a cruise. Go on a cruise with Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade. Does not please them is to put to a vote. The only check on this hijacking, the only mechanism that we can do to continue government when they leave, beyond the reach of in-state compulsion tools, is quo warranto. Now, if representatives are free not to show up whenever they choose, well, that means Texans simply don't have a representative government because we don't have representatives. In fact, they don't have a functioning government at all. This court should make clear that a legislator who does not wish to perform his duties will be stripped of them. It's pretty clear, pretty easy. Just you don't show up for work, you're fired. That's how it works for everybody else in the whole world. The regular session of the 89th Texas legislature concluded on June 2nd, 2025. And so what happened after that, not long ago? Abbott, he came out, he issued a proclamation announcing a special session to begin Monday, July 21st, and identifying 18 items for consideration. Now, much of this is talking about the flooding, tax cuts, the elimination of the STAR test. And the governor also said, guys, while you're doing all of this, like in the special session, you should also just take a little look at the congressional redistricting plan, which I'll just email over to you right now. Now, legislators are elected to represent their constituents in Texas. When the governor calls a special session, the Constitution says, Article 3, Section 5, the legislature shall meet. Do you see that, Gene Wu? Showing up to conduct legislative business is not cast by the Constitution as optional, like you can go hang out with other governors in blue states, like Hochul, who's going to declare war. Instead, by using the word shall, the Constitution imposes a mandate. While the Constitution does anticipate an inability to make a quorum, it does not suggest that an intentional lack of quorum by fleeing out of state Democrats can be used to violate the constitutional mandate. It says shall meet. They're not doing that. Historically, legislators have taken extreme measures to live up to this requirement, including one who, in defiance of doctor's orders, installed a gurney just off the Senate floor to ensure he could represent his constituents and fulfill his primary constitutional duty. It's amazing, that dude. He's like on the verge of death. He's like heart monitors beeping out in the middle. He's like, any final words? Nay. And then he dies, and that's the final vote. Amazing. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we want. We want our government, our governors, to be interested in the job and actually do the job and do it well, actually. To ensure legislators honor this duty, the House adopted rules providing that members can be fined $500 for each calendar day in absence. And now they're taking money from other individuals that nobody really knows about where the money's coming from. And they're taking private jets to Illinois. Any fines must be paid out of their personal funds. They should not be paying for this out of their political contributions, so their constituents are paying their fines. Almost immediately after Abbott issued his proclamation calling for a special session, the Texas Democrats, including Gene Wu, began discussing the possibility of breaking quorum. They said, we don't like this. Reports indicate that to facilitate that effort, some Democrat members sought to bankroll their obstruction with the backing of big dollar Democrat donors who would cover the expenses as a benefit if they avoided a vote. Okay, so I'm sure many out of state dollars are flowing in. Meanwhile, other House members, the Republicans, they dutifully went about their work. They showed up to their jobs. That's, wow, shocking. Now, on August 2nd, the House Select Committee on Congressional Redistricting conducted its fifth hearing and voted favorably. We're going to be advancing the redistricting legislation. It's going to go to the full House, and it's going to pass. So then we scheduled it, August 3rd and August 4th. But within hours after the calendars were posted, Chairman Gene Wu of the House Democratic Caucus boarded a chartered plane for Chicago, Illinois, ran away like a little baby, apparently provided as a benefit to withhold their vote and to deny a quorum in the legislature, and fled the state with many other members of the House Democrat caucus. They're going on a field trip to one of Pritzker's hotels because they're public servants who are serving you, America. It says publicly available statements indicate that Wu deliberately fled the state to abandon his official duties indefinitely. Yeah, I mean, who paid for that flight? What was that chartered plane? Where'd that come from? Was that from Pritzy? He also solicited money from individuals and organizations both inside and outside Texas to fund the violation and his absconsion and to skip a vote in Texas. Here's what happened. Gene Wu first planned not to show up for work for the specific purpose of abdicating his duties. Anybody else anywhere would be fired instantly. Weeks earlier, oh, you're actually intending to obstruct the functioning of this entity? You're gone. Weeks earlier, Wu traveled to California and Illinois to strategize with those states' governors. Pritzker's bosom event, including attending meetings to determine where lawmakers could stay because they're fleeing Holocaust conditions, according to one of them. Out of state while denying the Texas House a quorum. He was committed to going where the governor has no power to reach into other states because they're in exile, and remaining there for one purpose. They want to kill the special session and stymie a vote on the new maps. And they're just, the idea is they're trying to run the clock out. So the special session will have an end date on it, and that end date will expire. Then they'll come back after that. Now, after leaving the state, Wu said, this corrupt special session is over. And he posted that on X, it looks like, somewhere. And he said, after leaving the state, Wu also claimed that we're now blocking the proposed congressional map, right? Here's what Gene Wu, Texas Democrat, fleeing Democrat. He said, as of today, this corrupt special session is over. House Democratic leader Gene Wu, because they've all abandoned their state. Second, writes Abbott, to the Texas Supreme Court, Wu has indicated that in his absence from the state, it's indefinite. We don't know when he's coming back. There's no end date on this. When asked how long he would stay out of the state, question in quotes, he stated that his commitment to this is one day at a time, and we're going to deal with this special session. Now, obstructing only the current special session will surely not be enough for him, given the governor's ability to call subsequent special sessions. And so, according to one major news outlet, Wu suggested that the walkout could last through the rest of the 30-day session, which was scheduled to end in late August, and possibly beyond. He likes it up there in Illinois. He doesn't really like Texas. They're not really his people. The Pritzker clan is. Third, Wu has openly solicited and accepted funds and other consideration for violation of his legislative duties. Look at this guy. They think they're such heroes. Look, this is how they act and think, and they think they're like saving democracy. It's really kind of embarrassing for themselves. On the ground in Chicago, fighting for the rights of Texans and all Americans. Then what are you doing in Chicago, Gene? Why'd you flee your state? Pathetic. So Gene Wu, he posts, images of himself like they're heroes, like, a little sunset in the background. Wow. Heroic. Third, Wu has openly solicited and accepted funds. He says, support Texas and help us not do our jobs. In another, Wu posted an image of himself boarding a private charter plane, followed immediately by a request for donations. Fighting for Texas. Give me a break, Gene Wu. Hey, please support our efforts. Donate. Give me some money. These are other libs outside of Texas who are going to be donating to him because they just want to stop Texas. That's what it's about. So that plane, it turns out, it came from Beto. That plane, it turns out, was a 76-seat private jet. Wow, that sounds nice. Man, it's good to be a fleeing Democrat. Taking Wu and other Democrats from Austin to Chicago on a flight that probably cost tens of thousands of dollars. It's like a slumber party of Democrats on a field trip like they're in the 8th grade. A recent report indicates, or they're like running away from home. Remember when you did that when you were 8 years old? Like, I'm leaving here, Mom, never coming back. She's like, have a nice life, son. Like, oh, well, that didn't work out. But we'll see if it works out for them. Now, a recent report indicates that the initial amount to get Wu off the ground, the initial plane, or the initial amount, so somebody paid for this. Guess who it was? It's Beto. Beto O'Rourke, his political action committee. In addition to offering the initial dollars, they also offered extensive public relations resources and a dedication of all donations to the Democrats, but only if they break the quorum. Isn't that fun? So, Texas Supreme Court, says Abbott, enough of this. Review is urgently needed. Under our Constitution, the current special session must end on August 20th, and so the clock is ticking. Wu and his colleagues waited until just over 2 weeks remained, and then they were trying to run the clock out. They carried out a premeditated effort to thwart their defined constitutional duty, shall meet and conduct the business of the House. Wu's gambit threatens to run the clock out not only on this session, but any future sessions too. And so you, Supreme Court of Texas, you have jurisdiction to entertain this case. The legislature is authorized. The law says that you, this court, can issue all writs of quo warranto against state officers like Wu. And the merits of our claims are pretty straightforward. In fact, longstanding precedent recognizes that deliberate abandonment of office constitutes forfeiture of that office. You don't show up to work, you're gone. It's fine. We'll find someone else. You're not irreplaceable, Texas Democrats. Indefinite removal to another state for purposes of literally avoiding the constitutional requirement that says shall meet in there. Do you see that? The law means something. It says shall for a reason. It doesn't say you may meet, but only if you're happy with what's on the schedule and the agenda. Soliciting and accepting funds is also bribery because it's in exchange for something. It wasn't Beto's PAC just saying, you know, you guys want to go to Chicago? No problem. We'll just fund it. It was in exchange for breaking quorum. Okay. Cited here, footnote 14 from this article. Houston Chronicle. Democrats who fled Texas racking up a huge bill. Who's paying for it? Ultimately, probably the American people are, because a lot of the Democrat money comes from us. But Democrats redistrict funding, and they said they would fund it, but only if they broke quorum. Like, we'll pay for you to leave, but if you're not going to break quorum, we're not going to give you a free trip to Chicago. So they're paying in exchange for a deliverable of their political power. It's bribery out on its face, and they're calling it out. So here you see, to the Supreme Court, they say, it is clear that a member of the House of Representatives is an officer of the state government. And for more than a century ago, when describing the proper object for a quo warranto, this court held that the phrase must be given its plain meaning, okay? Similar to the comptroller of public accounts in another case, Wu is an officer in a branch of the state government whose duties extend to the transaction of business. He's invested with sovereign functions, and the oath of office says, and even classes members of the legislature alongside all other elected and appointed state officers. And so just as surely, this petition also concerns the proper subject of quo warranto proceedings. Now, Abbott does not seek to impugn the past acts of a government official. That's not what we're trying to do. Blame them for something in the past, whatever. It's not punishment. All we're trying to do is address the ongoing abuses of this public office by ousting the non-user. You can't just come in here and squat on a public office. Wu has abdicated his official responsibilities, rather post images on X. The governor is likewise the proper movement. This court has previously consulted the case law on this, and at least since the reign of the Tudors in England, the court agreed that this has been something that's happened for a long time. Wu's willful renouncing of his duties here because he wanted to not do his job is a public abuse of power in addition to it. Now, none of the rules change the analysis here that you might want to reference. And we have specific jurisdiction over it, saying Supreme Court, in other words, the people of Texas and the people's representatives, the law clearly expanded access to the writ of quo warranto by conferring additional authority on this court. The two proceedings may run concurrently. Chapter 66 may be invoked. And finally, this court should exercise its discretion to entertain this original petition. The court has treated its jurisdiction to kick them out as discretionary rather than mandatory. But like this other case in Texas, there are compelling reasons to exercise discretion to hear this now. Like, we don't need to go up through the other chains file it in a lower level court, then go up to Court of Appeals, then get to the Supreme Court. We're going to do right now. Time is of the essence. Special session expires. Wu is in the middle of obstructing this right now. We got fast approaching midterm elections. All of this is meant to deny a vote as long as it takes, by his own admissions. And second, we also contend that Wu is improperly holding office. And third, there are no disputed issues of fact. Wu may believe he's justified because he says stupid platitudes like this, quote, committed to saving this democracy by not doing his job from his elected constituents who put him there to do the job. But he cannot dispute the numerous public statements showing the bargain he struck in exchange for this. They've publicly stated they're leaving in order to abandon their positions. And so the writ of quo warranto is a tool for challenging improper usurpation of an elected office. You're not present, you're not in your position, and so we're declaring you're gone. Perhaps one familiar notion of usurpation is the pretender to the throne. This is somebody claiming an office that was never theirs. But there are more ways than one to abuse a public office. In fact, at common law, the writ of quo warranto lies also in the case of the non-user. So somebody who's claiming a position that they don't have or entitled to, but somebody who has that position who's not using it. An office could be forfeited by neglect. They talked about this in England. Now that remains the law in Texas. An office holder's right may be forfeited or lost by a non-user or misuser, though the party continues to assert it. Such non-use or misuse must be with actual or imputed intention on the part of the office holder to abandon and relinquish the office. Like, what if somebody just gets hit by a bus and they're incapacitated and they're, in a coma for a month? Or like if you're Senator Feinstein and you're basically an invalid, probably for 2 terms or however long, and they just keep, pushing her along or something like that. Is that abandonment, if there's not an actual direct intent in that position? Can somebody else claim abandonment if you're not actually physically, mentally there? So what does it mean? Here, it's actually a pretty high standard. You got to have intention, baby. You got to show that person was like, I'm out. Unequivocally, intentionally said, I'm out. Wasn't hit by a bus, wasn't negligent, wasn't reckless, didn't become an alcoholic or something and just disappear. Actually voluntarily said, I'm out, I'm abandoning ship. Governor Pritzker's bosom looks a lot more attractive to me. I'm just going to nuzzle up right in there, snuggle in there for a couple months, and abandon ship. Wu expressed his intention to abandon the office 3 times with no end in sight to any of it. And he openly acknowledges his abandonment of his official duties. He's accepting compensation in exchange for the abandonment and getting benefits in order to do that. Fleeing the sovereign territory he purports to represent, going over to Chicago. Now, they write to the Supreme Court, every elected officer of this state, including Wu, swears an oath. They all do it. Faithfully execute the duties of the office, unless the Democrats are going to give them private flights to Pritzkersville. The principal duty of a legislature is to actually show up. The quorum provisions further underscore attendance is not optional. It is an affirmative constitutional obligation. The Constitution authorizes the House to compel the attendance of absent members. That power would be meaningless if members could just freely make themselves absent for political advantage without any consequence at all. Such actions also render meaningless the government's authority when it says the legislature shall meet. Why is that in the Constitution if it's not the law? Because it is the law. Now, Wu has openly renounced these mandates, and he is fleeing Texas in order to break quorum. He's trying to obstruct the proceedings, trying to paralyze the Texas House. And these are not just mere collateral consequences of his actions, okay? He didn't get hit by a bus and needed treatment in Chicago. He didn't turn into an alcoholic and abandon ship or something. He intentionally, the purpose of the trip is to willfully, intentionally flee. So that means that's abandonment. We can take that as indicia. Well, how do we know he's actually left his office and abandoned it? Well, because he said so. Yeah, but did he? Yeah, 3 times. No. Well, is he like he just doesn't want to come back because he can't? No, he's leaving because he doesn't want to do the job. Literally, like he doesn't want to vote on the thing. Well, his job is to vote. Yes, that's right. And he doesn't want to do that. And that's why he left. Oh, and he said intentionally? Yeah, 3 times. Okay. Sounds like abandonment. Like, what more can you want from somebody? Accordingly, this scenario is entirely unlike the representative who unintentionally misses a vote or is forced to be absent, there you go, because of an illness or an emergency, absconding from the state during a constitutionally mandatory session, not for lawful cause, but for the exact purpose of subverting the legislature's ability to function. It's a flagrant violation of Gene Wu's oath, and it's an intentional abandonment of his constitutional duty under Texas constitutional law. Now, it's no answer for Gene Wu to say that he plans to continue serving as a representative from Chicago. His own statements and actions show a refusal to actually serve as a representative, okay? He can say whatever he wants, but he's not actually doing it. That's because what representatives do, their job is to represent their constituents in the chamber in Texas, not in Chicago. They appear for a quorum. It's part of the job. They meet with other legislators in hearings. They speak with their constituents. They debate bills. And in the end, they vote their district. Now, neither the governor's special session call nor the House procedures has in any way deprived him of his duty to discharge these duties. Don't blame the Republicans because you don't want to show up. He's free to debate all of this. He can just show up and say, I object, and make your case, make your pitch, talk about American democracy, whatever. And he, of course, is free to vote against it. But he is not free to choose to be a legislator in name only and squat on a position. He who forgoes the constitutionally mandated tasks of actually legislating. Most people who repeatedly fail to show up for work get fired. Yes. Public servants must be held to the same standard. Now, even though Wu continues to assert his office, he has functionally left it. And it's no answer that he could eventually be removed by the voters. Well, I'll just wait till the next election. If they don't like him, they'll just remove him. No. The damages he's causing and continues to cause are immediate and irreparable, extending beyond his district, impacting voters throughout the entire state. They're making the entire legislature come to a standstill. A voter in Lubbock, a voter in Dimebox, and a voter in Kerrville all have no recourse for Wu. They want their government to continue. Now, we also think that there is bribery, and his actions violate other provisions of the law. And since he's taking bribery in exchange for political decisions, that requires forfeiture of his entire office. Now, there is an especially good reason why bribery may form the basis of removal. Our Constitution seeks to root out bribery at practically every turn. The oath of office provisions, for example, obligate state officers to sign a statement swearing that they have not and will not exchange things of value for the giving or withholding of a vote, or withholding in italics. Only after filing that signed statement with the Secretary of State may legislatures members take the oath and swear in. So he signed that, okay? I'm not going to get anything of value in exchange for withholding a vote. Sounds like he's getting a lot of things of value in exchange for withholding a vote, including a trip on a private jet. Should they prove untrue to their word? The Constitution has more to say, including one of the penalties can be a forfeiture of their office. Now, in other words, the Texas Constitution makes forfeiture of office the default remedy for any legislature or legislator who accepts money or things of value in exchange for his vote, whether it's withholding or affirmatively voting, either way. If you're in any way influenced by that thing of value, you're busted. And now it's up to the district attorneys to prosecute criminal bribery allegations, but hopefully they do. Now it's up to this court, however, and you know, state prosecute, like you can RICO all the Democrats, just like Fani Willis did. They're insurrecting their state government right now, Democrats, in violation of the law, committing felonies, civil arrest warrants now issued from the House, all sorts of things. So, yeah, you just have, like, where's the Texas Fani Willis, who's actually competent? It's up to this court, however, to determine whether forfeiture of office has occurred under the Texas Constitution. Now, as this court recently reiterated, the same underlying conduct that could form the basis for criminal law may also serve as a predicate for removal of office. Wu's actions broke through that line at full speed. He never looked back. He's like, oh, yeah. Private jet? Yeah. You know, he's in first class up there. The whole thing, I guess, is first class. I don't know. I don't have any private jet experience. But he's probably up there. Yeah, I'll take another one. I'll take another one of those hot towels, please. Just, I'll take some of that. Thank you. I'll have another one. Yeah, another spritzer would be great for Gene Wu. He never looked back. He's like, this is great. I love breaking quorum. Getting a foot massage. Now, as recounted above, Wu met with outside groups weeks in advance while planning to break quorum. He demonstrably accepted, quote, things of value, an expensive trip on a private jet to actually facilitate the withholding of his vote from Texas. He continuously solicited money, he posted about it, for himself and others in connection with the group's official action of breaking quorum. He did all of that in exchange for not doing his job. All he had to do was show up for the meetings, but he couldn't do that. So on their face, these actions violate Section 41 of the law. They could also constitute crimes. Any member who accepts or agrees to accept any benefit for not doing their job is guilty of a second-degree felony. We need a Texas Fannie. Where are you, Texas Fannie? Burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid guy. Namely, that legislatures shall meet when the governor calls a special session. Now, that is why the House rules impose fines for unauthorized absences. Using outside funds to end run the very penalties designed to secure compliance with duties is not merely unseemly. It's a violation of duty of the law privately being financed by Beto. Now, the Constitution says, if any member of the legislature removes his residence from the district, his office is vacated, okay? If you're like Adam Pencilneck Schiff and you declare your primary residence is over in Maryland, what are you doing being a senator or a representative in California if you live in Maryland? Well, we know that they just try to have it both ways and just get cheap mortgages because they're fraudsters. Same thing happening here. If you're not in your district, get out of your office. Go represent somebody in Chicago if you love them so much. Texas courts have consistently interpreted removal of residence, which is physical departure plus intent to remain away. Both of those sound pretty good. Now, ordinarily, temporary absences don't offend this provision. You go on a vacation, you go on a cruise. But in this case, a member of this legislature, Gene Wu, deliberately and indefinitely is departing from his district, and his intention, his express purpose is to sabotage our state Congress. He's also soliciting funds. He's trying to prolong that absence. Nothing happening here is ordinary. This self-imposed exile evidences no intention to return to his job, and the legislature can't work. So the effects of this vacancy, of all of this, is a vacancy in the office. Now, once again, it hardly matters on paper that Wu might have a homestead on file in Texas. Like, I got a residence there. At present, he has no stated intention of even returning here. He said it on his own. He's given, media interviews. Instead, he intends for Texas not to be his home for as long as this takes. That present intention is what matters. It's not like I have a backup plan for going to Texas at some point. You're out. You're not intending to come back. It's indefinite as it stands. So right now, you're gone. Now, his plan of fleeing for the remainder of this means we got to remove him quickly. So Texas Supreme Court, this case is not a political dispute, okay? It's a constitutional crisis happening right now that the Supreme Court of Texas can resolve. The current special session is set to expire in just 2 weeks, but Wu is not going to come back in those 2 weeks. Instead, he claims the special session is over. We're not coming back. Permitting him to continue to occupy his office so that he can abdicate his duties is only going to enable future legislators to grind this government to a halt in the future. Now, expect maybe someday the fleeing Democrats will return, and maybe they'll even be hailed as heroes who fought by fleeing. But in the meantime, okay, they are preventing the Texas legislature, duly called by the governor, from addressing the acute needs of Texas. Every day, the fleeing Democrats in their absence waste taxpayer dollars, imperils urgent policy needs, ranging from improved flood response tools to omnibus whenever the governor adds an item that they find offensive, they're just going to flee? If you don't do this, there's no end in sight to this piracy of our law. The Constitution, writes Abbott to the Supreme Court of Texas, nowhere envisions Texas signing on to that kind of suicide pact. Legislators may, of course, disagree on specific pieces of legislation, but our Constitution conceives of deliberation and debate as the official way to process official disagreements. That is why, in addition to laying out the order of business, there are mandatory duties the Constitution places on people so that they can abandon their jobs and paralyze the legislature without consequence. Now, this writ of quo warranto exists exactly for this reason, Supreme Court. And there's still time. You can use it. Save us now. Ordering Wu's removal from office would ensure that the public office remains a trust that's exercised in good faith, as opposed to some platform for private gain and private flights. It could also begin to make it easier to establish a quorum in the future, but above all, it's going to restrain the abuse. Refusing to address this problem now, Supreme Court, if you don't handle this right now, it's going to be a problem. The integrity of Texas's constitutional order demands urgent intervention, and we're asking for you to step in. Signed here by Governor Greg Abbott's team, Trevor Ezell, Joseph Banke, Jason Bramau, Caleb Gunnels, all shout outs to them out of Greg Abbott's office. So they're saying you should find that this dude, Gene Wu, has forfeited his office and abandoned his district, thereby creating a vacancy. Now, if not, alternatively, and at the very least, you should find that there is probable grounds to file an information. If you're not going to actually do it, just consider this an information, and let's have some further hearings on this. We would like an order soon. And of course, the Supreme Court of Texas came back down and said, Gene Wu, you got to file by Friday, August 8th, and we'll see what Gene Wu has to say about it. Now, Harmeet Dillon is also taking it in on the voting rights front. She has now announced new lawsuits are coming out saying, we're suing a bunch of these other state jurisdictions that have fraudulent voter rolls and are refusing to remove non-citizens and are refusing to deduplicate things and clean up the mail-in balloting process and all the things. So there will be consequences for this. Harmeet Dillon looking into it.
Our constitutional duty is to protect the right to vote for all Americans. 60 years ago, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to confront the brutal reality that too many Americans were being denied their rightful access to the ballot. The Voting Rights Act came at a critical time in our nation's history and was the catalyst of necessary change. This landmark law removed barriers to voting. It outlawed poll taxes and literacy tests and gave the federal government the tools to stop discriminatory barriers at the ballot box. Today, under the leadership of President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi, this Civil Rights Division is continuing to protect equal and transparent ballot access with vigilance and resolve. We are investigating violations of federal voting laws. We're ensuring that all 50 states have and continue to have clean voter rolls. We are challenging efforts to suppress or dilute the vote. We are attacking illegal race-based gerrymandering.
Nice.
And we are protecting ballot access for all Americans. We have sued jurisdictions such as North Carolina for not registering voters properly by first verifying their eligibility. We have notified Texas of grave concerns about congressional districts drawn with racial motivations. And we are suing other jurisdictions where there is evidence of ineligible voters on their voter rolls. Our job is to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. On this anniversary, we honor the Voting Rights Act, not just by remembering it, but by enforcing it for all Americans. And that's my promise to you.
Amazing. So this is a major structural shift that we're seeing happening. Not only are we securing the border, so the influx of illegal aliens who are absolutely voting in our elections and even in local elections, that's cut off. So that also impacts the future apportionment of the country. It also impacts the future natural-born citizens that, of course, are born illegally in violation of the 14th Amendment. All that's being cut off. Now you've got redistricting happening in Texas and other states, whereby they're going to play the same game the Democrats played and actually get more House seats that they're entitled to. And then we're also going to clean up the voter rolls and go after the states that are allowing people to register without validating them, like in North Carolina, which we saw was a major problem in many of these elections. They came out after the election. Well, we found another 10,000, duplicate situations we got to remove. All of it now getting scrutiny. Then you couple that with all the USAID money and all of the Democrat, slush fund billions that were coming into their coffers, all of the agreements that were being funneled into the educational institutions and the law firms and all of it. Their entire infrastructure is crumbling around them. And that's good because we want actual free and fair elections, not rigged institutions running things that were installed by Democrats. Trump was asked about the redistricting battle in Texas, and here's what he said about it.
If Texas redrawing their congressional map would get you 5 safe red seats, means that California, New York, Illinois, and Maryland are all going to redraw their maps to add safe.
Well, they'll do it anyway.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, they'll do it anyway. Why? If we stop over there, they would have done it anyway. Look, a lot of these states, I watched this morning as Democrats are complaining, and they're complaining from states where they've done it, like in Illinois, like in Massachusetts. I watched this lunatic, Pocahontas. She's a total lunatic. I don't know what she's on. She's all jumping up and down like I've never seen anything like it.
She's crazy.
Talking about supporting the communist mayor. And he's not a socialist. He's a communist. Okay, this is not a socialist, man. This is a communist. If you look at any of his policies and go back 6 months, you don't even have to go back further than that. So they want to put a communist in New York. Now, the good news is we have a lot of power over that because we're the ones with the money. We send the money. We don't send the money. It's up to the White House. A lot of power in the White House. But when I watched her jumping up and down talking about that and supporting the communists, but if you look at what's going on with the redistricting or whatever you want to call it, the Democrats have done it long before we started. They've done it all over the place. They did it in New York. They did it in a lot of different states. But in Massachusetts...
Yeah, and now they're permanent Democrat constituencies because once they get power, they don't play nice. And the Republicans are always like, well, let's, like the Constitution says these things, so we should do it this way. Democrats don't care. They are out there just taking names. And now the Republicans are starting to play the same game. And I think even the same pattern happened with Trump the first term, right? And he's commented on this. He said, I could have gone after Hillary and I didn't. I took the honorable path. I didn't act like the Democrats. If only Trump had known that Obama and Hillary had set up the entire Trump-Russia collusion hoax and they all knew about it and did it anyways, maybe that would have been a different story. But now, hopefully, with lessons learned, the Republican Party realizes if you're going to beat them, you got to play by the rules they're playing by.
So somebody used this as an example today. I was interviewed this morning, and they said, it's pretty unfair. Trump got 40%. I'm not proud of that, but I think I probably got more, but that's okay. I got 40% in Massachusetts, and yet they have 100% of the vote in terms of Congress. So there's no Republican, there's no anything. So we should have 40%. You know why? They redistricted, and they've done it all over the place. And they've done it in California, by the way. Before this, they've done it in California. So we'll see what happens. We have a wonderful governor in Texas. He feels strongly about it. It's going to be up to him. I think there's tremendous support for it. And, we've watched the Democrats destroy our country in 4 years. They've destroyed between their open borders that we talked about, transgender for everybody, all of the horrible things that they've done, high taxes, horrible medical provision for people. We've watched them destroy our country for 4 years, and people don't want that. And people in Texas, as you saw, I got the highest vote in the history of Texas. I love Texas. Texas likes me, obviously. But I got the highest vote, and that was checked out on the show. Did you see that? Where they checked it out, they said he actually did get the highest vote in the history of Texas, which disappointed them. They were very disappointed to hear that. But Texas is a place that's done very well with a free enterprise kind of an attitude, with the exact opposite of what's happening in New York with a communist mayor. And they know what they're doing. And
all right, so we'll
see
what happens with the Supreme Court in Texas. They've given Gene Wu till Friday to respond to this. We'll keep our eye on it, but it's nice to see a red state playing hardball with the Democratic Party. Democrats throwing a hissy fit. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now let's change our attention to this story because this is another interesting one that is here courtesy of Radar Online. An FBI informant. Documents now released showing that's exactly what Epstein was. And we have a lot of questions about this because if he was an informant, the question is, what was he informing on? And what did the FBI do if they were receiving this information with that information? Did they prosecute anybody or anything? Or were they just covering up for Epstein? But these are new documents that have now been released according to Radar Online in a FOIA request that looks like it shows some of the case log from the 2007 non-prosecution agreement case, saying in the aftermath of that non-prosecution agreement, he was giving them information and in other words, the FBI as part of their deal, and that there was no charging decision that came out of DC. So that's why everybody's getting subpoenaed from James Comer, as we talked about yesterday. But here's what happened. Here's where these documents came from. They say Jeffrey Epstein was secretly working with the U.S. government, according to a new bombshell document that they got. The late tycoon in PDF file, who died in jail, age 66, was more than just protected, said somebody. He was a puppet. He was an informant and spy for the FBI, added an intelligence agency source. They got a 2008 internal file obtained through a successful FOIA lawsuit. It shows Epstein was operating as an FBI informant before his now infamous 2007 plea deal. Wow. So even before then, not just after that. It's not like they caught a guy and then they flipped him and they're like, okay, we're not going to punish you as long as you work with us. No, he was an informant before. Then they started to charge him. Then they got wind that he's one of theirs. So Epstein, they said, has also provided information to the FBI as agreed upon, writes a special agent. The name was redacted, but he wrote this on an internal cable dated September 9, 2008, just marked as routine. It said, case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. So that was where the plea deal came out, right? Ultimately, that it's going to be a non-prosecution agreement as long as he pleads guilty in state charges, which don't have this big federal grand jury that's been impaneled. So they'll forget about that. As long as he's abiding by the state stuff, we're going to leave him alone. Here's the deal. That bargain was struck with the DOJ when Epstein was facing federal charges. It allowed him to plead guilty to reduce state-level charges. He served 13 months of jail, a lot of it under work release, so he just went back home, reported back to sleep there. The agreement was infamous not only for its leniency, but also for granting immunity to his co-conspirators and for being concluded before all the victims had ever even been interviewed or his electronics seized by authorities at all. At the heart of the deal was Alex Acosta, the then U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And we have a case file, I do believe it's up now at watcherfiles.com for Acosta. Yes, we do. You can see we added some stuff today. Alexander Acosta is this fella right here. And he was the person who originally had a 60-count indictment ready to go, a 53-page draft ready to go. And then, of course, that never happened because he signed this non-prosecution agreement. Right here is his name, Alexander Acosta. And in this agreement, there was blanket immunity for basically everybody, all co-conspirators. And this was a no contest guilty plea out in Palm Beach. Such a crazy, crazy plea deal. So anyways, that happened. And now Acosta claimed that he had been told to back off of Epstein. He said, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. But here's the document. So you can see it's here. Writing precedence routine FBI date 9/18/2009. So after the date of this non-prosecution agreement, which was in 9/24/2007, saying, here from Miami, PB1, contact redacted, approved by redacted, drafted by redacted, attention, special agent redacted. Title and the case ID are here. It says General Forfeiture Matters, Jeffrey Epstein for child bad crimes. Here's the synopsis. All right, we request the closing of the forfeiture subfile. We don't need to go get any of those things or maintain any of this property. Investigation has revealed that redacted, B6, 1, 2, 3, B7, C, B5. AFI redacted, something, 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 Palm Beach, Florida, which is something, something, something. All redacted, which would be very good to know. But here's more. On 9/11/2008, this is an FBI agent writing this, case agent advised writer that Epstein is currently being prosecuted by the state of Florida and is complying with all conditions of his plea with the state of Florida, which is standard, right? If you're going to take a plea deal, and that might happen, like you might have, sometimes you'll get like, you know, a young kid will have a couple crimes in like 2 different jurisdictions. Or like, let's have a global deal. Let me communicate with both prosecutors and just say, look, he's going to do this case and this case. Will you agree? Let's communicate, work out this global resolution. You can do that. But that's not what this is. Epstein has also provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. So is that agreed upon per the plea deal? Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with Florida. Case agent also advised that no further forfeiture assistance will be required because they're done. Case agent is requested to contact the writer in the event this matter moves forward on a federal level. And so they're done on that. Now, the uncovered document suggests his claims may have been the tip of an iceberg. The full memo explains exactly what we just read. Now, the file also pushes the timeline of his ties to the FBI back even further than we initially suspected. Because you might just say, oh, so what? You know, if he took a plea deal and part of the deal was like an unspoken agreement that he's going to facilitate the FBI and be an informant for them, and they have some, you know, confidential source agreement in addition to the plea deal that we don't see, you could say maybe that's even normal, right? A criminal gets flipped and turns government informant. But the question was he already an informant before these charges were brought, and the charges were actually dismissed and minimized because of that discovery? And what did they do with the information that Epstein provided to them? Were there any indictments that came from that? Not to my knowledge. So the uncovered document says it was just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the file pushes the timeline back. A source close to the case told this masthead, he said, these are the smoking gun documents. They show Epstein was an active source for the FBI way before his plea deal in 2007. Now, here is this file, P something through P something. And here you see 2008 entries from February 27th and 28th. There were emails between Marie Villafana, Nesbitt Kirkendall, and Jason Richards regarding a review of the evidence received pursuant to subpoenas and planned interviews of additional potential victim witnesses. And looks like this is part of a log that is being disclosed. Now, the revelation has reignited longstanding suspicions that Epstein's immunity was not because of his lawyers or connections, it's because he's intelligence. One source familiar with the investigation reported, the real reason the FBI has been stonewalling for years is because these files blow up the official story. Epstein wasn't just evading justice, he was helping them. Yeah, that's why everybody's so concerned about it. It's like, is our government facilitating global pedophilia and allowing it to happen so that he could continue to abuse 1,000 people because he was giving them information? What? Epstein's non-prosecution agreement included language almost unheard of in federal agreements, immunizing both known and unnamed associates who were all accused of exploiting girls. These names, Sarah Kellen, now 45, no charges for her. Adriana Ross, co-conspirator, no charges for her. Leslie Groff, nothing for her. And Nadia Marcinkova, nothing for her, which is weird. Like, how come they didn't get charged? If Ghislaine Maxwell didn't have immunity, how come, and it's a jurisdictional limit, that deal only applied to Florida, how come they didn't charge any of these other ladies anywhere else? But they got Maxwell in the Southern District of New York. Why is that? I don't know. But was Epstein being protected? Here's another entry. on 4/21/2008, emails between Maria Villafana, Robert Sr., Jeff Sloman, Karen Atkinson, Nesbitt, and Drew about continued delay in presenting the case to the grand jury due to failure to receive a decision from D.C. Status of grand jury presentation and ongoing investigation, staffing of the case for purposes of the trial, and meeting to prepare for the grand jury presentation. They had a lot of material on this dude, but they couldn't use any of it. So critics have said that the reason he got this immunity is because he's intelligence. And we know Obama's White House counsel, Catherine Rumler, also met with Epstein multiple times after his conviction. The FBI is not turning over any records as it stands, but a little bit of information there. Now, I think you could read this another way too. Like, certainly he was providing the FBI information. Does this show that that was happening before the plea deal? I don't think so. Not on its face. You could argue that it came about after the fact, but I mean, even if it's after the fact, like if Epstein wasn't an informant before they caught wind of these charges and the DOJ then starts to investigate him, then they get the, hey, nope, he's one of us, cut it. Then the plea deal comes down. That I think is probably more accurate, but if it's not, if Epstein flipped and then became an informant only after the plea deal, then what did we get from his informants being an informant? Anything? They should tell us what was the benefit of that relationship. So what we're seeing here is there was something that went down. I mean, Epstein got a deal because of some leverage he had. No one gets deals like that because you've got good lawyers and you got a 60-count indictment coming this way. You've abused like dozens of girls at the time, maybe thousands at the time, not even interviewing victims. Like that is like malpractice, like not even interviewing the victims if you're going to settle a plea deal. What is that? The only explanation is intelligence. And there's a lot of smoke here. And all these redactions, I'm sure, would tell us a lot more of the story, but they're hiding it from us. Why? Probably because they were complicit in the entire operation, which is sick. So we also have updates. Maxwell and Epstein had some new orders filed in their cases. You can see we got some docket entries here in the Maxwell case and another one over here in the Epstein case. Let's get familiar with what's going on. Pretty quick one over here came out from the judge. It's a one-pager in the Epstein case. He says, all right, listen, we're battling about whether to unseal these grand jury records and transcripts. And so in order to assist the court, we want the following from you, Trump DOJ. We want in your reply by Friday, we want to know if you've submitted anything to Epstein's representatives or if you've gotten anything from the victims on this case yet in the Epstein matter. The extent to which Epstein grand jury testimony and the accompanying grand jury exhibits have been made publicly available, which we saw a little bit about that yesterday. A lot of stuff has been made public in the Maxwell case because she went to trial. Epstein was dead. And the government's position on the exhibits. So what are we going to get? Whether they're exhibits or just the transcripts. We know that Todd Blanche originally was just asking for the transcripts. So that's the Epstein update. Now over here in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, we got a bunch of letters that came in. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what's going on here. This order in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, she's still alive. The order publicly dockets 5 letters that came in from victims yesterday about their request to unseal the grand jury materials. These letters have been redacted, but we're letting you know they're here. So here's what we got. The DOJ also submitted this in. This one came in today saying here, okay, the government is now respectfully submitting these letters. We got 5 submissions to the DOJ. Here are the list of the submissions. We got a letter from this lawyer, and they're explaining this lawyer, no redactions. This is unsigned, and this is unsigned, coming in through lawyers, signed by Jay Clayton. So here's the update. So here's the various letters. Joe Scarola submitted this. The undersigned is counsel to multiple victims of the criminal conduct of Epstein. And pursuant to your order, Judge, here's our position. We are in full agreement with the public disclosure of the transcripts. That's interesting, okay? Because the judge is doing this balancing test right now. What does the defendant say? Maxwell, as we saw yesterday, is objecting to the release. She wants them not out. We read other victims who are okay with it coming out, but as long as it's like ultra redacted, they don't want any information about them to be available. Now this victim says, unseal it. Further states that all Epstein-related information and documents in possession and control of law enforcement, prosecutorial, or other government entities and agents should be fully disclosed. All disclosures should be subject only to the condition that privacy rights are protected. This request for disclosure includes, but is not limited to, complete transcripts of all interviews and depositions from Ghislaine. All right, so that's like what we're looking for from the victims. Like, we read other letters from the other victims that were like, Donald Trump's a bad man and don't tell me anyone who I am. You're like, all right, give me a break. Like, save your political speeches and your, complaining about the politics for some other letter. But here is another one. This one came in from lawyers. We write on behalf of Annie Farmer, who testified at the trial, saying, we're very unhappy about this. The government is admitting, and Boyce Schiller Flexner, I think is a very liberal, in my opinion, anti-Trump law firm from our history. I think that they had some interfacing with George Conway, E. Jean Carroll. Have to double check on that one. But yeah, we've seen them before, saying, we write on behalf of Annie Farmer in response to a belated notice we received asking for disclosures. The DOJ is even admitting, they say, over 1,000 victims suffered from Epstein and Maxwell. However, this is true. To date, 1,000 victims. However, to date, the combined forces of our country's law enforcement have only ever arrested 2 people in connection with this. That's all. Great job, FBI. Says here, the government's recent suggestion that no further criminal investigations are warranted is a cowardly abdication of its duties. It's obviously impossible for 2 people to conduct a decades-long sex trafficking enterprise with thousands of people alone. The recent controversy surrounding this is now coming to the forefront. And while it's not our duty to disclose these records, there's a lot of material here. They say, as opposed to a much larger volume of information than more than just the 300 gigabytes that Pam Bondi said they looked at. This is a decades-long systematic criminal scheme that shocked the conscience of the public, lasting harm to survivors, and we need transparency. While grand jury secrecy serves important purposes, it's not absolute, and there are special circumstances where this stuff can be released. Now, the privacy interests of these victims is important, and so we should redact their information, which I don't think anybody's objecting to. But even Annie Farmer, she supports releasing them, strongly supports the release of the Epstein-Maxwell transcripts. Unsealing these serve the interest of accountability, restorative justice, and transparency. So another victim saying, release it, man. Tab 3, here's another one. Let's see what they decide. We represent this person, this lawyer, numerous other people. We write to address the request to unseal the records. Our position regarding unsealing cannot be viewed in isolation. There's a lot of things happening simultaneously. And so what is your position? So in light of the foregoing, oh gosh, we want to do a bunch of stuff. We want a comprehensive review of the materials. So you don't want it released. So you don't want it released. So we want a referral, require a conferral notice, pre-release review, dispute resolution before unsealing or release, and defer or deny all these things. Okay, so it's like, all right, we don't want it released. The survivors support transparency when it can be achieved without sacrificing their safety, privacy, or dignity. But transparency cannot come at the expense of the very people who the system is designed to protect. Now, the public platforming of Maxwell as a credible commentator and her transfer to a lower security custody and a government request to unseal is the looming specter coming next of clemency, a pardon, which is probably coming. The survivors have already endured profound violation of their rights, and so essentially we don't want this to come out. Okay, that's the long story short. Toward narrow tailoring, maximal privacy, meaningful victim participation before anything comes out. And so we ask that you adopt those safeguards. So we've got some victims want it out. Those clearly do not, right? That's what that's meant. They don't want to say, don't release it, but they want like 5 things to happen before they're released, which means practically they don't want them released. Here's another one. This one coming out says, I've been taken aback. Who wrote this one? Somebody anonymous. Thank you for your time. Says, I've been taken aback from all the monumental and disheartening things. That's why I'm writing. This is all very exhausting, says this person. I'm bewildered. Also, news came out that they might release the audio from Maxwell and Todd Blanche. Now, I think the more concerning thing to me is the subpoenas. Why not subpoena the Virgin Island officials that were working with Epstein to allow him to further his sex trafficking rings? Great question, madam. Why not subpoena the longtime attorney and accountant that Epstein had working by his side? Again, I just feel like the direction of the administration is going all wrong. And what was it that his accountant took from his mansion the day after he killed himself? Man, great questions here. In terms of the audio file that's likely going to be redacted once the scrubbing of the names of the wealthy is off the recordings, that's not transparency, she says. Unfortunately, the public will never be satisfied, which is probably true, and the victims will continue to live this nightmare. I'm so confused. Why rewind and go back to the convicted sex trafficker for questioning after almost 4 years? What were they even there to ask? What are you conspiring? What is your next step? What is the end game? I asked the United States government that so rightfully wants to release the sealed documents, at least give us notice when you're making these decisions, like moving her to minimum security. I think the victims have a right to hear the audio without redactions. I think the victims should be able to see what the FBI took from his New York City mansion, his Florida mansion, and the private island resort. I think we should be able to see all the files, says this lady. I think any photos or videos of the victim should be given back to them, not reviewed by Congress. Gross. She's 100% right about that. You know how many disgusting perverts there are in Congress? A lot. Will justice ever be served? I question what that would look like to the DOJ, the FBI, because so far we've got nothing. Not even an apology. Not even the answers we so long for. We all want closure and for this distraction to stop. This is some type of psychological game. By keeping the public ignorant, the very fact that something is secret means there's something to hide. And obviously there's something here. It's like, what are you doing with Ghislaine? Why is she now getting moved to minimum security facilities if she's got nothing? I support the U.S. Committee on Finance, led by Senator Wyden. Follow the money. Yeah, and all the financial crimes. I mean, they came after Trump for like allegedly lying about his square footage. But I request more transparency. I think the victim's lawyers should have access to everything. We have a right to take legal action. It has been super unfortunate the way the government has handled this. It's true. We as victims want answer, not only us, but I think the general public is exhausted too. The general public cares more about their own personal well-being, right? Generally, I think it's a general rule, but I think our well-being is also impacted by our governance. Unfortunately for victims, this story will never go away. There will always be an interest in the case of Epstein. Ghislaine's trial was based off the fact that Jeffrey could never be tried and killed himself. Why, oh why, will we have to live with this conspiracy for the rest of our lives? Because they keep laboring the truth, scrubbing the data. It's so hurtful and a detriment to the victims to continue disregarding our feelings, our traumas. Please, I ask you to consider for our well-being. Please, I ask that the true redactions that come first are only for the victims. Thank you for your time. It's a good letter, man. It's a good letter from her. Appreciate that one. And here's one. It's like sometimes the letters from the actual victims are way better than the lawyers, as you see. Like lawyers are like, well, case law 1975 says, she's like, I don't even know. What are you guys doing? Like, just get your act together. Investigate these crimes. Are you nuts? We represent these people and we're responding to the motion to unseal. And they're opposing. The government has not met its burden to justify unsealing. So they should remain sealed. Okay, so this is like an opposite. So we got a nice cross-section of people here. The privacy interests of this person outweigh any historical interest in justifying disclosure. In any event, Congress has discretionary power, and so this guy, Neil, said they've been relentless in this. There's going to be extreme reputational harm if this info comes out. And the government cannot show why any innocent third parties like this person, who are not even the subject of charges, is merited. Like, we don't want this person's name coming out. And it certainly cannot meet the burden with any materials that so-and-so has. And so all of this should remain under seal. And you've got some in favor of unsealing, some in favor of sealing, and some who are just confused about what the heck is going on. So we'll see what ultimately comes out, but obviously there's more here about intelligence, and the documents continue to come out to show that Epstein and Ghislaine were just the tip of the iceberg. We'll see what comes out. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we keep covering this one. All right, now, one more update on the day, and then we'll hear from you. And this one is from Tulsi. The director of national intelligence now saying some pretty magical words. Knowingly approved. Oh, that sounds like criminal intent, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Tulsi Gabbard was on with Laura Ingraham talking about this. A couple clips from her today, as well as this question about Marco Rubio and his prior finding leading the Senate Intelligence Committee, saying that, there's really not much nefariousness out there, that there was Russia collusion, and that, there was no real maliciousness by the FBI in setting up Crossfire, all that stuff. Well, he had fake information too, as we're going to learn about. But here's what Tulsi said. Obama is at the center of this, and he cannot escape it. And the walls are going to continue to close in. And it's going to be fun to say that as soon as he's indicted, no one's above the law.
Playing those clips of these people like Morning Joe seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true, I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, G-O-V. It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction, per the president's order. And very specifically, they were tasked to create an intelligence assessment that detailed how Moscow tried to influence the election, not if, but how. And this was the beginning of this manufactured intelligence assessment, where they knowingly wrote things in this assessment that were false, and they knew they were false. They knew that they were basing it on discredited intelligence or documents like the Steele dossier that was politically motivated and that they knew was false. And this was how they came up with the Russia hoax that was then weaponized and used to try to delegitimize the president, President Trump, and to try to ultimately enact this years-long coup throughout his entire 4 years of his first administration.
And they did that intentionally. And as she was mentioning, they knew about all of this, and they knew for quite a while. And we're assembling a Steele dossier timeline over at Watcher Files, not published yet. But remember, this is kind of how the breakdown went. July 5th, 2016 was the meeting time. The claim the FBI knew about the Steele dossier on July 5th is fundamentally correct. It wasn't a case of limited intelligence. They were there. There were multiple sources who knew Steele dossier was not good. They knew before the election. They still incorporated it into their work. And it came from Victoria Nuland. Remember her? She personally authorized FBI agent Michael Gouveia to travel to Rome for the meeting to meet with Steele. They knew it was fake. Nuland got copies of Steele's dossier mid-July 2016, made its way up to Gina Haspel at the CIA. And from that point on, they knew. The FBI distributed it. And by early August 2016, the election's coming up, FBI had requested all information in Steele's possession. And then it became part of the broader intelligence community assessment. But they knew that it was fake, and evidence supports it. Senior FBI officials knew that her immediate reporting to headquarters happened. They knew about the receipt of material, and they knew it was in the briefings. Now, the Steele dossier came from Hillary Clinton. It was funded by Hillary. and Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS and the DNC, all knowing that it was bad intelligence, incorporated it against Trump. And they did it knowingly. So this question has come up a bunch about Rubio. Well, Rubio wrote a report, and the report said that Rubio agrees with the outcomes of the Mueller report and Crossfire Hurricane and all the conclusions. And so here is the State Department answering the truth about that, which is Rubio got bad intelligence just like everyone else because the intelligence people intentionally hid it and kept it out of the public eye.
All right. Yes, sir.
So in recent weeks, we've seen the release of previously classified documents showing that then President Obama and his intel chiefs weaponized the 2017 Intel Community Assessment to push the lie that Trump colluded with Russia in the 2016 election. And in this,
Watch this
ICA, which showed at the behest of Obama's intel chiefs, included weak and misinterpreted intel to push the notion that Russia wanted Trump to win the election. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the ICA did not include evidence showing the opposite. Many media and the Democrats have since clung to the Senate Intel Committee report and then Senator Rubio's work in drafting that report that said the ICA was fine and that they agreed with Obama's intel chiefs that Russia intervened to help Trump. So my question is, does Secretary Rubio agree with the media and other Democrats that there was nothing improper about the creation of the ICA, or do the recent documents that have been released change his views about the assessment?
Well, I put out a statement myself responding to this when it first came up, and I've found that for you. But I would say that this, in some ways, explains, of course, the vehemence and the effort to try to keep President Trump from winning the last election because of the nature now of what investigations are occurring or may occur. This is what the American people voted for. We saw a great deal going on that was improper. And so we look forward, of course, to what these investigations reveal. Regarding Secretary Rubio, as then Senator Rubio, my statement was this, I think maybe over a week ago. If the legacy media were at all curious about the facts of the matter, they would have found from then Senator Rubio's own statement from 2020 concurrence with DNI Gabbard's consequential findings. Then Senator Rubio determined that the use of the Steele dossier was, quote, very troubling, but even more so, he was alarmed by the behavior and the actions of the FBI in pursuit of what has now been confirmed as a dangerous hoax. His statement revealed serious wrongdoing leading to one of the most infamous political scandals in American history. And of course, I think that at that time was appropriate. As all of us who are here and grateful to be here and blessed to be here, we are also grateful for the American people seeing through that and putting President Trump back in office.
A quick follow-up, if I may.
Right, sure.
So you're saying that Secretary Rubio disagrees with the assessment from Democrats and the media that the drafting of the ICA was on the up and up?
Well, what I can say and what I always caution people in this room to not do is to not draw an extended conclusion about something that I presented. What I presented is what I presented. So I'm not going to expand more on that regarding what the Secretary thinks or
well, can you ask and find out, please?
Might be considering. I won't get ahead of the Secretary in that regard.
Good. Ask him and give us some answers on that, because I want to know what Rubio has to say about that. Otherwise, it's just Rubio said he had concerns about the Steele dossier. What kind of a response is that? So anyways, we know that Avril Haines, Obama's DNI, was also involved in this. This came over from Emily Kopp, explaining that other people are going to be brought into this. Avril Haines, she clipped this, says, while the mainstream media dismissed the conspiracy theory, I think this came from Schellenberger, the idea that President Obama may have had a hand in shaping this, they said, we do not know President Obama's role in this, but we presume that NSA Susan Rice, Lisa Monaco, Avril Haines, all played a role in the timeline and the rollout because they were trying to set Trump up. Now, if you're hearing Democrats saying, this is weaponization, how dare they go after Democrats who broke the law? How dare the Republicans get so excited about arresting Democrats or arresting criminals? And this is not America. This is not what our republic, our democracy, as they say, should look like. Remember this from these people?
58 House Democrats have recently voted to advance articles of impeachment.
Impeach him first and then indict him.
Yes, the president, a sitting president, can be indicted.
Even if the president were to somehow find some way to terminate Mueller, the indictments would continue to grind.
You could impeach anybody on anything. You can try and indict.
He is not functioning as the president of the United States. Frankly, if he ever gets indicted, he'll have insanity as a defense, I suppose, from a criminal charge. But it's hardly, this is a serious matter.
She's gone totally nuts too, so she's having a real tough time. Like they thought that they had removed Trump from their lives forever, and then he's like back and bigger than ever, so they're having a real hard time with it.
You're starting to hear people talk about the possibility that Donald Trump leaves office in 2 years and then finds himself in the crosshairs of these New York prosecutors.
They were, yeah. I mean, they prosecuted him 4 times, 4 criminal charges, and then civil charges, calling him a sexual abuser and a business fraudster, and they try to remove him off the ballot. Now they're going to cry because they don't want to get caught and stopped. All right, so that's what's happening over there. Let's take a look at what I did to the screen. Here we go. We got one final clip of the day from Tulsi. She was over with Miranda Devine, who I got to meet. Very pleasant lady. She wrote this here. She was having a conversation with Tulsi. Here's what that conversation sounded like.
This is where you use the word dangerous. This is where the weaponization of the intelligence community can have such a dangerous outcome that is really impossible actually to measure. When we look at a sitting president of the United States and President Obama unhappy with the outcome of the election and making the appearance of a peaceful transition of power,
priding himself on it
over and over and claiming to be the champion of democracy, and yet launching what we now know came from President Obama was a covert mission, essentially, to subvert the will of the American people, create this lie that would challenge the legitimacy of President Trump's election and the 4 years of his administration, resulting and affecting in what was truly a years-long coup. This is why it's so important, and I just keep repeating myself over and over again, because you look at the evidence that we released. We have to look at it within the greater context of what happened in the months leading up to that election, November 2016, and what followed in the years after, in order to understand or get a glimpse into the true implications of this.
Why do you think Barack Obama did that? He'd served 8 years. He was going out on a high. What was he so frightened of with Donald Trump that he needed to sabotage him?
I haven't seen any intelligence that reflects his inner thoughts or intentions with this. But again, I think you can take a step back and just recognize at face value, if Hillary Clinton had won that election, this would not have happened.
Yep, they would have gotten away with it, right? As long as they maintained power, Hillary would have come in and just covered it up. So what was the consequence? And they thought they were going to get away too, if it wasn't for those meddling kids of Trump voters who brought him into power. But I think the explanation is pretty simple. Obama's a communist and he wants to reshape the country. And so to the idea that Trump could come in and undo all of the things he did over the last 8 years was horrific to him. And he was not going to allow that to happen because he's a partisan hack. He's not some great unifier that he pretended to be. So Tulsi Gabbard, man, we really appreciate her getting out here and making the case for this and doing a little, public relations to explain these people are criminals. And it's nice to have her, a former Democrat, coming out and advocating against other Democrats who tried to coup the country and then tried to blame Trump and MAGA, call them insurrectionists, when this whole operation was conducted by the CIA, FBI via Obama. We're looking forward to the indictments, and we hope you join us when they come. All right, my friends, what a beautiful day it has been. Happy Wednesday. Really glad you're here. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about today. We spent some time in Texas on the redistricting battle, which is turning into a fun one because the Supreme Court got a big fat motion from Governor Greg Abbott saying we should just throw these people right out of their seats. And there might be some good law to support that. So we read through that. We got reaction here. Obama's crying about it. Tom Cotton's dunking on him. Ken Paxton's dunking on Massachusetts. They're just a bunch of whiners and babies. We then learned about Epstein and some new documents that Radar Online got their hands on, which show some pretty interesting exchanges between Epstein and the FBI, hinting that, yeah, he's intelligence, and that's why he got the deal. We got some updates on the Maxwell case. We got 5 victims' letters that came in on her case. The judge in the Epstein case is also asking for some clarification from Todd Blanche and the DOJ. And we also got updates from Tulsi. Tulsi telling us Obama knowingly approved. He was at the center of this entire conspiracy, and no one's above the law. So we'll see what happens with that. But subpoenas are flying, and we're keeping our eye on it, my friends. Thank you for being here. Now it's time to hear from you. And thank you for supporting our work here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. Thanks for liking this video if you're on your way out. And big thanks to Donut and John for clipping for us today. And my friends, thank you for sending these donos in and for bringing in new membos. Hey, it's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, my friends. It is. It's all downhill from here. We got what's up. Costco Law School. Oh, that's great. Costco Law School. Yeah, you probably get some pretty good value out of that. And you could eat their pizza all day. Jessica Dottie Whitaker was murdered for saying all lives matter. The case remains unsolved. We need an FBI investigation into her murder. Jessica Dottie Whitaker. May she rest in peace. And I think that the FBI probably is not going to look into it. But I think that you're right, that the FBI probably should look into a lot of other unclosed cases. Although, yeah, rest in peace to Jessica Whitaker. Thank you, Costco Law School. E. Texley, Wingman Eric Holder is and has been the chairman of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. I did not know that. Yeah, I did not know that. That's very interesting. So, yeah, he's Obama's wingman, right? He's another operative who was at the DOJ working for Obama. Agent for VIPs. Hey, thanks for stumbling over Travel Agent yesterday. I had no idea my screen name was changed. Well, I did a change and changed my name to my business website name. Keep up the great work from Travel Agent Amy. I thought it was you, Travel Agent Amy. Travel Agent. I thought, nah, that's Amy for sure. Agents for VIPs, man. Travel Agent Amy. Handle your travel needs. What's up, Trinal Galaxy? Thank you, Trinal, for this one. Says, the Oregon Republicans used to pull this all the time. The Democrats made that illegal and disqualified them from holding their seats. I have no sympathy left for the Dems that skip town to block votes. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any sympathy for the Democrats at all. It's like the Republicans who still want to play patty cake with them are just embarrassing themselves. They are trying to destroy you and your families and your whole lives. It's like, and you're just like, well, you're good people though, and this is America. Give me a break. At least play at their level. Or let someone else do it. Trinal Galaxy, great to have you. Yeah, it's time to play hardball. They tried to throw Trump in prison and disqualify him off the ballot. So yeah, it's like no more nice guy. Hey, what's up? Trumpinator says Democrats are so B-rat, aka obnoxious. Is that what the youth of America? B-rat? That's obnoxious? Yeah, it's hit, man. Hey, Rick D. What's going on, Rick D? Gotten a ton of messages asking for video of me refereeing. Here you go. This was a professional event in 2013. All right, so we'll check that out in the after party. Thank you, Rick D, for that. Rick D is now in the Billiards Hall of Fame for being a referee. We can't wait to watch that. Hey, Sharon Sunshine. What's up, Sharon Sunshine? Thank you for becoming a member. Join us in the members only after party we're going to have here in 1 minute. Felix de la Cruz. One dipstick said, like the Alamo, but the heroes at the Alamo didn't run away. Cowards, cowards, cowards. Cowards. Democrats are cowards. That's all true. That's all true. Hey, it's Saturn, dreaming of Mercury. What's up, Saturn, dreaming of Mercury? That's an interesting screen name. Sassy Southerner. So Saturn's bringing in 10 new members. Thank you, Saturn. Sassy Southerner, welcome. Moldy Guard in the house. Music Mountain Girl, Al Wade, what's up? Confession of a Cookie Addict, Talon Forge, we got Sharon's here, Fallen Hero, Garrett Pace, and No No Never, all gifted membos, courtesy of Saturn, Dreaming of Mercury. Thank you, Saturn, for doing that. 10 new friends, welcome. Courtesy of our 6th planet. Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Fanny's anus, Pluto. Do you count Pluto or not? Don't mess with Texas. Welcome to supporter Don't Mess with Texas, who's probably in Texas, not fleeing and absconding. Thank you for signing up. Off-Label Podcast, what's going on? I just found out that Kansas now has a white-only town, and it's racist, but black-only town in Georgia is a safe space. Wow, that's interesting. So Off-Label Podcast, you're talking about that tonight over on Off-Label Podcast right next door. Check it out. Yeah, this story is insane tonight from Off-Label. There's a whites-only town in Kansas and a blacks-only town in Georgia. Doesn't sound good. Stacy Milliken, can't watch you now. Wanted to say hi and brag about the dinner I made. Oh, ribs. 1 rack smoked, 1 rack in the oven. Oh, corn on the cob, cornbread, baked beans, roasted potatoes. It was amazing. My own recipes. Man, that sounds so good. I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, but it's not going to be that. I'll tell you that. Stacy Milliken, thank you. I hope it was delicious. Thanks for sending in the dono and enjoying what sounds like nature's most perfect foods. Chubby Stubby, Deb's actions in Texas sure does sound like bribed sedition to me. Yeah, I think that's where this is going. So, no one's above the law. We lived 4 years of that, so indictments immediately. Stacy Milliken, hey, thanks for being awesome, Rob. Thank you, Stacy Milliken. Baby back rib Stacy Milliken in the house. Thank you for that. Felix De La Cruz says, Wu is a traitor. Paid for by another beta male called O'Rourke. Call him Bobby Beta Male O'Rourke. Gene Wu and his little coward pals are all weenies and part of the Wu-Tang clan. Bucky's his Rome. Thank you, Felix. Bucky's his Rome. Good. Hopefully he uses them to arrest D.C. judges and Democrats. Wow, Trump says he's considering taking control of the D.C. Metro Police to go arrest all the Democrats. Felix De La Cruz, you can squat of it if it is part of your dance. Oh, gosh, we got some colorful commentary there. Leonards, we need to pass laws prohibiting the broadcast of propaganda on public airwaves. Kimmel and Colbert are pure Dem propaganda. Yeah, but is it working? You know, it's like they're losing. They're losing because they look so pathetic and they sound ridiculous. What are these shows even? It's just like a kind of masturbatory for their people. It's strange. Felix De La Cruz, Wussy Wu-Tang is selling his creme. Oh, gosh. Don't mess with Texas. As soon as they land in Texas, they will be arrested and brought to the House to vote. After I pray Ken Paxton gets them on bribery charges. America and Texas, baby. Don't mess with Texas. Yeah, indict them, and then they can fight back, and they can have the experience that many Republicans had of hiring lawyers and having to defend themselves through the court of law. Felix De La Cruz says, Coward Wu is a coward. Deserters must be punished. King of Biltong is here. Do you need more protein in your diet? Answer, yes. Try some healthy high protein. Biltong, it's packed with B12, creatine, iron, zinc, and much more. And you can get yours at BiltongUSA.com with code Robert. You'll save 10% off. Thank you, King of Biltong, for sending that one in. Hey, Felix De La Cruz, they are not going to war or even to a war zone. They're the lowest form of cowards. They deserted, and they are the lowest of cowards. They must be treated like deserters and thrown out. Arch Lord, Dune Rider, what's up? In Massachusetts, Republicans are unable to affect change at all in our state. Senate is 35 Dems versus 5 Republicans, and the House is 135 Dems versus 25 Republicans and 1 unenrolled. Yeah, it's like, it's over. So what do you got? I mean, like, what do? You just abandon ship? I don't know what you do. Yeah, Arch Lord. It's like that in California. It's a one-party state. Like, we love democracy. It's a one-party state. Has been that way forever. Will be that way forever. And what do? Mark Kish, 85, 22 months as a member. I wonder who's handing out the talking points. Well, I've been seeing a lot of that. So a lot of the House, the Texas House Democrats are saying like, that's a Republican talking point. So they're instructed to just say that anytime they're getting criticized, as we heard in the clip today. And thank you, Mark Kish, for being here. 22 months, my man. Thank you for that. Felix de la Cruz. Democratic, communism, socialist are all roads to authoritarian totalitarianism. Yeah, and they just pick different labels. They're label people. They love to change labels and all the things. So we know what they are. They're communists. They don't try to tell us you're something else. We know. This old guy. Texas Rangers should be executing search warrants issued by Texas of the charter jet carrier who landed one of their planes in Texas to pick up the Democrats. As a carrier, they utilized Texas facilities to make that flight as soon as their wheels touched down and touched the runway in Texas. Yeah, like, why don't we get a Texas judge to issue an injunction and bring them all back? We order you to turn the plane around and bring them back. Order Pritzker to send them back to Texas. Like, where's that at? Hey, Bucky's is Rome. Says Democrats demonized Republicans with the media for years to make them look extreme. So now Democrats look at a communist running and will vote for him because they think he's going to save them from the Nazis. They brainwashed all the young people in college. It's true. I went to college. And Democrat policies have made livings in their states unaffordable. So yeah, young people are going to go all in on it. This was by design and on purpose to usher in communism, not to mention all the people they imported from socialist countries. Yeah, that's right. That is exactly right. Not to mention all the people they imported from socialist. It's even in the Communist Manifesto. Like, this is Karl Marx's idea. You want to create class strife and tension such that the proletariat will rise up and overthrow the bourgeoisie and seize the means of production and result in hundreds of millions dead. Hey, what's up? Heidi in the house. Says here, for 2 years, Jigam, who's our meme smith extraordinaire, who's amazing. If your manager doesn't explain why you didn't get a raise over 3%, think twice before going over their head. No prior issues or write-ups at this company, just hard work and quality output, but oh well, moving on. Need print, digital, graphic work, video editing, or WordPress development, my friends? Heidi Gigam is amazing. HeidiProductions.com. You know, Heidi, in many ways, this is going to be a blessing, I think, for you. You're so talented. You're going to crush it on your own. Updating my site soon with new content. Prayers welcome for HeidiProductions.com. Heidi, we're excited to support you on this. So, termination letter because you sent a question, and we're sorry to hear about that. But you know what? This is going to be a blessing in disguise, and that dumb company made a big mistake in losing somebody so talented, in my opinion. And so, Gigam, Heidi Productions, my friends. And by the way, like, you've seen the memes of Gigam. In fact, you can go see a whole handiwork of just like memes that took 5 minutes to make over at watcherfiles.com. And you know, I've got an idea too on that too. So, okay. So if you go to the memes section over here at watcherfiles.com, so many of these came from Gigam, and they're like super talented and amazing stuff that I could never do. So awesome, Gigam. Really glad to hear you're going out on your own. Excited to check out your new website, HeidiProductions.com. We're going to be loving you. We're loving you up a bit. All right, Felix de la Cruz, what's going on? I want to see, in fact, let's go check out the website. Thank you for linking that right now. Boom. Let's see what we got cooking over here. It's going to be getting updated. All right, so it's getting updated. Thank you for the link. HeidiProductions.com. Oh, it's looking nice. Here, let me turn off my... Whoa, man, this is great. So she's very good and talented, my friend. So be sure to check her out. Look at these highlighted projects. HeidiProductions.com. She's amazing. She's really, really an awesome person too. So talented and awesome. So check it out. HeidiProductions.com. Heidi, we're glad to have you here. What's going on? Felix de la Cruz. I want to see the elite people's pedos squirm in fear. Then have the deer in the headlights look as their names are released. Tony Hay Muckets, you know, you and Alex Stein on at the same time. I wish you guys could hook up sometime. I just asked him to. That would be fun. I have 2 monitors, so I'm fortunate. From Tony Hay Muckets. Man, Alex Stein's hilarious. Yeah, that'd be fun. I I watched him talk about transgender people in some hearing. It was hilarious. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Felix de la Cruz, main P stream media. The main P stream media says the king has no clothes. What's going on? Hey, Rob is here. Remember the email she sent to herself? President Obama said to do things by the book. Susan Rice. This is going to bite somebody in the tush. Yeah, we got that email up. So if you look up Susan Rice over here, I think I added that last night, that email. What did I do with Susan Rice? There it is. Is that email in here? I may not have updated it yet. I got to push an update. All right, so it's not up there yet, but it's going to be. I have it saved. Hey, the Rubos! Man, this is also amazing. So the Rubos are here. Cheryl Lynn and I are excited to announce that we have launched the Kickstarter campaign for our storybook, which is called My Father's Miraculous Rock Soup. Look how beautiful this is. It says, this is for our supporters to sign up, and by signing up, you'll be notified when the campaign officially launches. Rob and Watcher family, we invite you to be a part of bringing this miracle storybook to light. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So, man, amazing. All right, so one of my ideas is just to start to consolidate some of these community projects, you know, so that people can just grab these links kind of in perpetuity, and we might be able to do that at the Watcher Files location so that people can click these links and join up and support you. So that's awesome. So Kickstarter.com. Links are in the chat. Thank you, John, for dropping those. Rubos, congratulations on launching this. Very exciting stuff. I can't wait to read it. And it's actually a soup. It's a rock soup, and I can't wait to try it. So shout out to the Rubos. Man, we love the Rubos. They've got amazing prayers. Here's one. We lift Jigam up in prayer. May you be comforted in your time of loss, strengthened in times of adversity, and provided for in your hour of need. In Jesus's mighty name, we pray, amen, from the Rubos. Amazing. Felix, and thank you for the Rubos. Amazing prayers. Felix de la Cruz is here. Obama's character flaws are a surprise. He is openly closeted communist homo, former cocaine user, sold, married his, oh gosh. We got Jigam. Hey, spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. Made mama's meatballs for my mom's birthday last week. A bunch of people here. No leftovers. Giga made this too, of Mama G, which is one of my favorites of all time. And so I love it so much. Giga made that. She's a graphic designer. Like, she can do that for your mom. Hire her. Amazing. Rob, hey, I think Beto O'Rourke should be charged with a crime for paying Wu to not show up. Yeah, he's a co-conspirator in the bribery scam. Hako Sports. Can we resurrect the Pinkertons? I'm not real sure who those are, but maybe. I don't know. Technology's getting pretty wild. Pinochet. Thank you for the dono, Hoko. We got, hey, Pinochet, regarding Massachusetts, to borrow a quote from U.S. Marine Chesty Puller, we are surrounded. That simplifies things. We can engage the enemy in every direction. Man, that is a great quote. What a positive thing to, like, what a glass half full kind of guy. Chesty Puller. Well, it's great news. Do we have a plan? Well, they're everywhere, so just shoot them, I guess, is the plan. Well, that's pretty simple. Let's go get it. Hey, Rep Some Dirt on It is here. Galaxy Whirlpool says, earlier in the stream, I was listening for the sound someone reported from your microphone in a previous stream. As I listened closely, I realized it sounds like a cry for help from the hobby closet. Oh, crap. I think your Sea Star could sense the clear weather from the treadmill. I guess the Sea Star wasn't consoled by the knitted emotional support chicken. My telescope may have contributed to the Sea Star's sadness by capturing the little cocoon nebula over the last couple of nights. Clear skies. Look at that photo, man. Crazy. That's the little cocoon nebula, which I knew, obviously, because I'm also an astronomer now. Because I took a photo of the moon once. Thank you. Rub some dirt on it. We appreciate you being here. Hey, Bucky's is Rome. You miss my dono, Rob. I'm highly disappointed in you. Do better. Well, I am a terrible person. It is true. Let's see. Where did I miss it? Okay, I think we got that one. Maybe this one. Since Democrats are screaming about democracy, I think that's the one I missed. With Texas redrawing districts, new plan. We, the Electoral College system, the states. So the blue cities can't control states that have massive Democrat cities. Help me get this going to, quote, save our democracy. It seems fair to me. So we just get rid of the blue states? We just say you're not blue. I don't know how we do that practically. We get rid of the electoral college. So if it's a popular vote, yeah. So we have to think that one through, Bucky's is realm. I think your plan is just to get rid of the Democrats peacefully and patriotically, which we support. So we have to beat them in the arena of ideas. All right. So my friends, thank you for sending in those amazing donos. Bucky's is Rome. You did better, Rob. I tried to make up for it. There's only so much you can do when you're such a failure, but we try to make up for it when we can. We got some comments over on X. What's going on, friends on X? Hey, Fred Pedamonte, great to see you. Hey, breaking news. Says Trump administration secretly building Auschwitz Island to deport Yolanda. I don't think that's a real story, but that's a funny headline. James Pepper, friend's bedroom in New Jersey was in 4 congressional districts. My community in Dallas, when the Democrats set the districts, was in multiple districts. My rep in Congress is useless. Hey, what's up? Pro One Bro. Tony, you're in Prescott? What's up, Tony? Man, I'm in Prescott too. We're neighbors. TJ King, in the past week, watching your excellent Sussman series, and it's utterly amazing how much evidence of conspiracy exists. Oh, you're rewatching the Sussman stuff, man? See, I gotta dig that stuff out. We did the whole Sussman trial. Trump tweets wires tapped, and mass FBI debate which of their surveillance efforts of him has been blown. Please revisit these. This is one of our videos, man, from an long time ago. Looks like FBI. Oh, not that long ago. 3 years ago. Wow, look at that. So it's pretty old. Yeah, there's a little bit of a different style there. Yeah, I remember I was doing PowerPoints. That's funny. All right, so good stuff. That's pretty funny. Hey, what's going on? Bucky's is Rome. And X, Bucky's is Rome. You did better, Rob. Felix, what's up? Good to see you. Felix over on X as well. All right, so my friends, you're amazing. Thank you so much for supporting our work here. You make it all possible. Appreciate your donos. Welcome new membos. We're going to go over to a members only after party and debrief, take some locals comments, watch Rick D do some billiard refereeing, and get into some other business. So we'd love to have you join us. We're doing members only after party. YouTube friends, hang tight. I'm going to drop a new link in the live stream chat so you can click on over and join us, or go back to the channel homepage, hit the refresh button, and you'll see the news feed live in just a second. We also, locals friends, hang tight, stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. But my friends, before we wrap up, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you to John and Donut Mind Me for clipping for us today. Very grateful. Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, K Bean, Carrie B in the mornings. Grateful for everybody who helps mod the fort down. G-Gum, our meme smith extraordinaire. Available at HeidiProductions.com. She, of course, is amazing. Just Rhonda and Elliot, we're grateful for everybody who is here and helping out. My friends, it has been just a beautiful and glorious stream. But we're going to pause here for the evening. Of course, we're coming back tomorrow. And we're going to get into it again. And in order to do it appropriately, well, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together